Touching moment revealed, Black CEO's incredible journey to reclaim 8.3B Tower after Mockery. Marcus Johnson stood at the foot of the massive historic tower, its brick facade basking in the golden glow of sunset, a testament to dreams that once seemed out of reach. The city's skyline loomed behind him, a reminder of his long climb through a world that often felt shut tight to someone like him. "You don't belong here," those voices from high school echoed in his mind, laced with mockery from former classmates, raised in privilege. But today was different. Today marked a seismic shift in his life. Years of struggle and grit had led him to this moment. As a single father and a tireless community mentor, Marcus had uplifted countless youth, teaching them the art of perseverance alongside the harsh lessons of life. His heart swelled with pride not just for himself but for every young person whose dreams he'd nurtured like fragile petals breaking through concrete. Today, he had sealed a staggering $8.3 billion deal to reclaim this tower, not just as a building, but as a symbol of hope for his community. Excitement surged through the air, electric and alive. Yet, the weight of societal expectations felt heavier than ever. A single bead of sweat traced its way down his temple. In that moment, Marcus knew he could not just be a CEO, he had to be a beacon, a bridge. The past wouldn't he let go easily, especially not his estranged brother, Marcus's shadow, feeling eclipsed by his accomplishments. Their phone calls had been sparse, laden with tension, each word a reminder of everything left unsaid. As he turned to share the good news with his son, a loud crash reverberated from nearby. Sirens blared as chaos unfolded, the whispers of the crowd intensified. Something had gone wrong, igniting an unexpected controversy that threatened to swallow him whole. Marcus needed to navigate this storm carefully, for in the eyes of the city, he was now a symbol, standing not just for himself but for an entire community longing for recognition. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The emotional stakes escalated as he saw his son's worried face, his innocence slipping away under the burden of adult expectations. With each passing second, Marcus felt the walls closing in. His mind raced. What did it all mean? The community counted on him, but what about his brother? Their relationship hung in the balance, fractured by misunderstanding and resentment, each brother carrying a grudge like a heavy load. Just when it seemed the darkness might swallow his newfound light, fate delivered a devastating blow that shook their neighborhood to its core. As uncertainty filled the air, Marcus was faced not only with the repercussions of his professional life but also with the chance to mend what he had broken in his personal life. He realized he had to choose, the allure of success or the power of family. Could he bridge the chasm that separated them, or was the weight of their past too much to bear? As he stood on the brink of a pivotal decision, the resonant question hung in the air: would he let his brother's resentment dictate their relationship, or could they create a future together? The answer lay just beyond reach, waiting to unfold in ways Marcus could scarcely imagine. The sirens blared louder, mingling with the rising panic in the air. Marcus could feel the world around him tilting as he rushed to the scene, where the commotion had erupted. People scrambled, and shouts pierced the noise of the city, a stark contrast to the dreams he'd nourished in his heart. His son clutched his hand tightly, fear radiating from the boy's wide eyes. "Dad, what's happening?" His son's voice trembled, pulling Marcus back to the moment. "I'm not sure, buddy, but we'll find out together," Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. He had spent years teaching his son about courage, about facing fears head-on. Now, he needed to put those lessons into practice. As they approached the epicenter of the chaos, Marcus's heart sank. A group had gathered around a fallen sign outside a nearby building, a protest erupting over news his company hadn't even revealed yet. "Gentrification," cried one voice, "you're ruining our community." Marcus felt the weight of their anger, and for a moment, he froze. This was no longer just about the tower, this was about people's fears, their homes, their lives. He had fought hard for his dream, but at what cost to those who had lived in this neighborhood? He felt cold fingers wrapping around his heart, a dread he couldn't shake. "I have to do something," he told his son, determination flaring within him. "Stay close." He approached the crowd, the flood of voices clamoring for attention. Their eyes were filled with hope and accusation, desperation mingling in their words. "Listen," he called out, raising his hands to calm them. "I'm Marcus Johnson, and I just closed the deal on this building. But I promise, I will not let this community down." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Each face reflected stories of struggle and resilience, and he felt their pain resonating within him. "This tower, it will not just be a monument for the wealthy. It will elevate our community, will create jobs, opportunities for your children. We can turn this into a hub of culture and support." Some people shook their heads, others crossed their arms. "You made a deal with the devil," an elder shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "You think money changes lives?" Marcus felt that phrase pierce through him. It echoed his own worries about forgetting his roots. But he couldn't back away. "I'm here to prove that success doesn't have to mean sacrifice. Let us work together. Your voices matter, and I'll bring them to the table." As murmurs of acceptance began to weave through the crowd, a flicker of hope ignited. He could see it in their eyes. They wanted to trust him, but they needed assurance that this time would be different. But just then, a figure stepped forward from the crowd. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he recognized his brother, Daniel, standing tall and angry, resentment etched deep in his features. Marcus's pulse quickened as Daniel's gaze locked onto his, and the air thickened with tension. "You think you can just waltz back into this community after all you've done?" Daniel's voice cut sharp. "You're not a savior, Marcus. You're just trying to save yourself." The crowd shifted, their focus now shifting from Marcus to Daniel. Marcus felt his heart race, the stakes climbing higher. Would he let Daniel's anger dictate his own path, or could he turn this moment into something transformative? With the swarm of the crowd pressing around them, and his brother's hurt so palpable, Marcus took a deep breath. He could see his son's anxious face peeking around the older men and women. It was time for healing, but could he find a way to break down the walls that stood firm between him and Daniel? The answer felt hidden behind a veil of unresolved past. As the eyes of the crowd shifted, waiting for the next move, Marcus realized he had more to fight for than just a building. He had to reclaim his family, and in doing so, reshape his destiny. "Daniel, wait." The words hung in the air. Daniel's expression didn't soften. A mix of hurt and fury flickered across his face, and Marcus noticed the tension spiraling like smoke into the crowd. With every heartbeat, he felt the weight of their gazes, curious eyes, judgmental stares, and a few filled with empathy. "Don't just wait, what do you want to tell me?" Daniel exclaimed, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. The crowd seemed to lean in, their attention riveted on the brothers. The air thickened with anticipation, as if everyone was holding their breath. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Marcus suggested, trying to keep his voice steady. "No way. You think I'm going to let you run away from this?" Daniel stepped closer, the hurt in his voice palpable. "You came back only when it suited you. When you had something to gain. What about us? What about all those times you abandoned me?" The words struck Marcus like fists, breaking through layers of protective calm he'd built around himself. He remembered the nights filled with regret, the guilt of leaving, and the weight of his decisions. "I didn't abandon you, Dan. I thought I was helping. I thought helping." Daniel interrupted harshly, shaking his head. "You think throwing money at a problem is the solution? You'll never understand what this place means to us." Marcus felt his resolve wavering as he struggled to find the right words. He had come back for a reason to make a difference, to connect with the community, and yes, to reclaim his place. "You're right," he finally admitted. "I don't fully understand. But I want to. I need to. I want to change, not just for me but for all of us. I can't change what happened, but I can help us move forward." For a moment, silence enveloped them. The crowd, who had been ready to erupt, now seemed frozen in time, waiting, processing. "What do you mean move forward?" Daniel challenged, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "You show up, say a couple of nice words, and just expect us to trust you? This isn't a game, Marcus." "No, it's not a game." Marcus took a step closer, grounding himself. "But I'm committed to listening. I need you, Daniel. We need each other. If you help me understand the community's needs, we can shape something together. I want to bring people into the decision-making process, not take away their homes. That's been my fear all along." The reputation of the Johnson name swirled around them, the tension palpable. "You? Bring people into the decision-making?" Daniel scoffed. "What makes you think you can just change everything on a whim? You're still the same guy who flew away at the first sign of trouble." Marcus winced at the truth in his brother's voice. He had been that guy, chasing ambition and wealth, while leaving behind everything: his family, his roots. "I know I've made mistakes," Marcus began, "but I'm not that guy anymore. I want to invest in more than just bricks and mortar. I want to invest in our people. I just need a chance." As the crowd absorbed his words, he felt a glimmer of something shifting in the atmosphere. It was tenuous but present. His son, still holding Marcus's hand, looked between them with an expression that tugged at his heart, hope mingled with uncertainty. "Are you ready to fight for this, Marcus?" Daniel's voice had lowered, almost wavering, revealing a hint of vulnerability. "Because it's going to take more than just promises." "I'm ready," Marcus replied firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes." The crowd began to murmur again, the tension easing just enough for a breath of possibility to creep in. Daniel's eyes scanned the sea of onlookers, then returned to Marcus. "Okay, then I'll help you. But you have to earn our trust, starting now." As they shook hands, the air felt lighter, yet charged with uncertainty. The road ahead was daunting, but perhaps this was the start of a different kind of collaboration, one that could reshape their shared story. "Let us gather the community tomorrow," Marcus suggested, excitement creeping into his voice. "Let us truly listen to them." But before they could embrace this newfound alliance, a sudden crash of glass echoed from nearby. Startled, Marcus turned as a small group of protesters charged them, anger igniting the atmosphere once again. It was only the beginning, and now everything was on the line. How would they respond when faced with this new wave of resistance? The sudden crash of glass shattered the tense moment, sending a ripple of fear through the crowd. Marcus instinctively stepped in front of his son, shielding him from the chaos unfolding. A group of protesters surged forward, their faces contorted with anger, fists raised and voices raised in a chant that echoed off the surrounding buildings. Marcus's heart raced as he glanced at Daniel. Would the fragile trust they had just built topple under the weight of this new conflict? The brothers locked eyes for a moment, exchanging a silent agreement to stand firm. "Stay close," Marcus urged his son, pulling him to his side. The chatter of the crowd swelled with uncertainty, a mix of surprise and irritation. People scrambled to align themselves with either Marcus or the protesters. "Step back." One of the protest leaders shouted, waving a handmade sign that read, "No more empty promises." Anger and desperation filled the air, almost tangible. Daniel stepped forward, hand raised. "Listen. We're here to talk, not fight." His voice boomed above the chaos, drawing some attention away from the protesters. But their chants grew louder. "You don't belong here. You're not one of us." Marcus felt their words biting deep. They echoed the doubt he had lived with for years. Could he truly bridge the gap, or were they right? Was he just an outsider trying to dictate change? Everyone! He shouted, pulling from the panic in his chest to project his voice into the chaos. I came back to help. That's my only goal. A few heads turned toward him, curiosity battling anger in their eyes. It was a small victory, but he needed more. Together, we can create a plan that serves this community. I swear I will work for you, not against you. He continued, desperation lacing his words. The protesters faltered, eyes flicking between him and Daniel, who stood resolute. Enough with the fear. Daniel shouted, suddenly gaining the crowd's attention. Listen. Marcus is trying. We are trying. We need each other to make this place better. Can we start over? The crowd paused, murmurs igniting in low, hesitant tones. It was a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Trust takes time. One protester yelled back, fists still clenched but avec less anger. How do we know this isn't just another facade? Marcus felt their skepticism smother him. What could he say to convince them? He looked at Daniel, who nodded as if reading his mind. Let us hold a town hall, Marcus proposed, inspiration striking him. A real discussion where everyone gets to share their ideas, their concerns. We can make it a safe space for anyone who wants to be heard. The protesters hesitated, looking back to their leader. The outlines of uncertainty shimmered in the faces around them. Their anger hadn't dissolved, but the tension in the air had shifted, allowing space for something new to grow. Fine, the leader said, a town hall. But if you fail to listen, if this is a stunt, there will be serious consequences. Marcus nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety that had lodged in his throat. I understand. And I promise it starts with listening. As the group reluctantly stepped back, the atmosphere spelled both tension and fragile trust. There was a long path ahead, a winding road filled with steep hills and treacherous turns. Let us meet tomorrow, Daniel said, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. And we'll start making real changes. As the crowd began to disperse, the intensity of the moment faded, leaving behind a lingering question. Could they truly rebuild the trust that had been shattered so long ago? Or were they walking back into the same reckless cycle that had plagued their relationship for years? Marcus stood still for a moment, absorbing the scene around him. He could feel his son's small hand still clutched in his. They were on the edge of something significant. But would it push them apart or draw them closer together? The stakes had never been higher, and tomorrow would demand everything from them. Would they rise to the challenge, or would the past continue to haunt their future? The morning sun barely broke through the clouds, casting a pale light over the remnants of yesterday's chaos. Marcus stood in front of the mirror, the reflections revealing the weariness etched on his face. The shadows under his eyes reflected sleepless nights weighed down by doubt. Today was pivotal. They had agreed to a town hall meeting, a chance to redeem himself and, more importantly, to reconnect with his community. He took a deep breath, mentally running through his speech. I must listen first, he reminded himself. The last thing he wanted was to sound like he was preaching again. It was a new day, a new opportunity, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Daniel's spirited encouragement from yesterday still pulsed in his mind. His son believed in this. Let's do this, he whispered to himself, trying to shake off the anxiety wrapping around his chest like a heavy blanket. Downstairs, the aroma of coffee filled the air, making a small warmth spread through Marcus as he joined Daniel at the kitchen table. Daniel was tapping away on his tablet, his usual enthusiasm brightening the otherwise tense morning. Have you thought about what you'll say? Daniel asked, glancing up, worry flickering in his eyes. I have, but they need to feel heard, not lectured, Marcus replied softly, running a hand through his hair. What they've gone through is real. I can't ignore that. Daniel nodded, his expression serious. You're ready for this. We both are. I hope so, Marcus said, his voice faltering for just a moment. This could go so many ways. What if don't go down that road, Daniel interrupted firmly, shaking his head. Focus on how we can help. We can't waste this chance. They finished breakfast in a silence thick with anticipation, then stepped out into the crisp morning air. The shockwaves of yesterday's protest lingered in the atmosphere, but there was also a thread of hope weaving through it. As they made their way to the community center, Marcus noticed signs of life, neighbors greeting one another, laughter spilling from a gathering of children playing in a nearby park. It was a reminder that amidst the turmoil, there was beauty and community spirit waiting to be revived. Arriving at the center, they saw the growing crowd. People gathered in small clusters, their faces a patchwork of unease and curiosity, creating a palpable tension that made Marcus's heart race. He exchanged a glance with Daniel, who gave him a reassuring nod. Marcus stepped onto the makeshift stage. The room quieted, faces turning towards him. The stillness was heavy, he could feel the weight of expectation hanging in the air. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice steady yet warm. I know many of you doubt my intentions. I can't blame you, I've been away for too long. Today isn't about me, it's about us. It's about your voices and your stories. He looked across the room, meeting the eyes of those who had come, searching for clarity and connection. I'm here to listen, to learn what you need and how I can support this community. I understand rebuilding trust takes time, and I'm ready to earn it. But I need your help. Murmurs of agreement floated through the audience, but skepticism still lingered. A woman in the front yelled, "How do we know you'll follow through?" Taking a breath, Marcus responded, "You can hold me accountable. This isn't just a speech, it's a commitment. If I fail, you have every right to call me out." The response was a mix of hesitance and hope, but the spark had been ignited. He could feel the collective breath of the room shift. As hands began to rise, eager to share their stories, Marcus sensed he was stepping into a moment of potential change. Hearts were opening, and for the first time in a long while, excuses were falling away in the chill of the morning air. But just as the energy began to build, the door swung open, and a new face stepped inside, one that could alter everything. "Sorry I'm late," a deep voice boomed, sending the room into a puzzled hush. "I have something to say about these protests." Marcus felt his stomach knot. Who was this person? And what did they know that could send this meeting spiraling into uncertainty? The crowd shifted, murmurs rising like the tide, curiosity and tension merging into a single, electrifying force. Marcus tried to catch the newcomer's eyes as they scanned the room, but the stranger's presence was a storm in itself. His stance was confident, built like a man who had weathered many storms before, and the way he carried himself suggested he had something urgent to say. "Who are you?" someone finally shouted from the back, the echo moving through the crowd as if they were breathing in unison. The newcomer, tall and broad-shouldered, cleared his throat. "I'm Jake Rivers," he said, his voice a deep rumble that commanded attention. "I'm a resident and a business owner here. We need to talk about what happened yesterday." Marcus felt the heat of the moment creeping into his cheeks. The protests had been unexpected, they had spiraled in ways he couldn't anticipate. "Yes, that's exactly what we're doing here," he managed, feeling a bit rattled. "Please, share your thoughts." Jake nodded and stepped forward, the energy in the room shifting closer to him. "Yesterday, you said you wanted to listen," he began, locking eyes with Marcus. "But listening isn't just about hearing, it's about understanding. We've felt abandoned. We've seen our lives turned upside down, and it's not just about the protests, it's the lack of connection." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd at his words. Marcus's heart raced. He could feel their collective frustration clinging in the air, thick with years of grievances and unmet expectations. "I get it," he said, steadying his breathing. "I really do. But I want to build that connection. I need to know how we move forward together. What's your plan?" Jake shot back, his eyes piercing with intensity. Because right now, we only see you up there talking but not enough action down here on the ground. When was the last time you walked these streets, Marcus? Really walked them? Sneaking a glance at Daniel, Marcus saw the tension in his son's face. He could sense Daniel's mounting concern, and for a moment, the room seemed to fade away. Was he falling back into old habits of evasion? With a deep breath, Marcus replied, "I've been away too long. I realize that now. I want to make it right. I promise I'll be here more, engaging with each of you. I'll set up smaller groups." A woman interrupted, "Smaller groups don't cut it. We want transparency. We want to see the change, not just hear about it." As the voices started rising, some angry, some pleading, Marcus felt the weight of them pressing on his chest. The chaos of emotions filled the room, a boiling pot ready to spill over, and he fought against the urge to retreat. "Let us take this one step at a time," he urged, attempting to regain hold. "I know I have to prove myself. I'm open to your suggestions, your ideas. It can't just be a one-way street." The air shifted again, a cautious flicker of hope igniting amidst the doubt. "What's next?" Jake challenged, folding his arms, an eyebrow raised. The question hung heavily. Marcus sensed the importance of this moment, the challenge to arise from the ashes, to transform protests into purpose. "How about we start with a community forum? Regularly. You tell me what you need, I'll listen, then we'll figure out a plan together." But before the idea could settle, Daniel interjected, "And what if you don't have the answers, Dad? What then?" Marcus's heart sank. His thoughts raced. Was he truly capable of guiding this community? It only took one misstep to fracture their hopes again. As he looked around the room, uncertainty danced in the eyes of those gathered, and as he stood there wrestling with the doubt in his heart, he realized what was at stake. How dear it was to reconnect with the community and heal old wounds, but was he ready? Just then, a voice pierced the air from the back of the room. "What if we don't have time for plans? We need solutions now." Marcus's breath hitched. What if they were right? The clock was ticking, and one wrong move could unravel just as quickly as it had begun to build. And in that moment of unexpected tension, he confronted his deepest fear: can I really lead them through this storm? Marcus's heart raced, feeling the crushing weight of uncertainty. The room was charged, emotions swirling like a tempest, and he couldn't ignore the rising tide of desperation. Faces he recognized, faces he didn't. Each one reflecting a longing for real change, a belief that things could be better. Jake stepped closer, the challenge in his eyes unwavering. "You say you want to listen, but it's about more than words. We need actions that match the promises. How do we know you'll follow through?" The words echoed in Marcus's mind, digging deeper into his resolve. He thought about nights spent locked in his office, surrounded by numbers, plans, and spreadsheets far away from the people these decisions affected. Suddenly he felt like a ghost in his own life. "You're right," he admitted quietly, feeling the heat of the spotlight shift back to him. "What I've done hasn't been enough. I need to hear from you, truly hear what you want. What happened yesterday is just the tip of the iceberg." A voice called from the back, stunning Marcus. "We've been marginalized for too long. Too many decisions are made without us." The crowd murmured in agreement. Tension coiled tightly around the room, each word expanding the chasm threatening to divide them. Marcus could feel Daniel's eyes burning into him, urging him to say something, anything. "You're right. We haven't included your voices as we should. No more. I want each of you to tell me what these community forums should look like." At that, Jake challenged him again. "How can we trust you to make this happen? Show us, lead by example. Don't just plan, act. We need to see you out there on the streets with us. Face to face." Marcus exchanged a glance with Daniel, who gave an almost imperceptible nod, a flicker of encouragement within the storm of uncertainty. Maybe walking those streets was what he needed to reclaim not just his place in the community but within himself as well. "Okay," he said, voice growing stronger. "I'm willing to go out there, meet you where you are. I'll do a walk, no, a series of walks. I'll be on the ground, listening as you speak, not just one-on-one, but with groups. And we'll schedule these starting tomorrow. I want to hear your stories, your struggles, firsthand." The crowd's reaction was a mix of surprise and muted murmurs. They weren't expecting him to agree so readily. Marcus could almost feel the curiosity shift in their body language, arms that had been crossed slowly uncrossed, tense jaws gradually relaxed. "And what if it doesn't matter?" a woman shouted from somewhere near the front. "What if we go through this whole process again and it gets us nowhere?" The bite in her voice cut through the air like a knife. Marcus paused, considering her question. He could stay in the safe zone, continue to dip his toes into the water, or he could dive deep, fully committing to the wave crashing around him. "Then I want to stop," he said, the conviction in his voice surprising even himself. "If nothing changes, I'll step down. I'll admit I couldn't do it. But I'll fight tooth and nail to make this happen. For all of you." That moment held its breath. The crowd seemed to absorb the weight of his words, searching his eyes for sincerity. He took a deep breath, rising to the challenge. "Let us schedule the first walk after the forum then. I want you to mark your calendars, be ready to hold me accountable." People exchanged glances, small nods flitting across the crowd. It felt like the beginning of a bridge being built, even if still fragile. Hope started to hum in a low undercurrent. As voices began to fade and the crowd dispersed slowly, Jake's eyes never left Marcus. "You better mean it, Marcus. This time it can't be just words." "I do mean it, Jake," he replied, his heart steadying. "This is where it starts." As the last of the faces melted into the night, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was only the beginning. The questions hung heavy, lingering like ghosts. Could he really change things? Would the community trust him again? But as he glanced at Daniel, the determination growing in his son's eyes ignited a flicker of hope within him. With every step they took out of that room, he wondered, could they really bring back the community's spirit before it was too late? Marcus woke up the next morning with a knot in his stomach. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the walls, but it did nothing to ease his anxiety. Today was the day he had promised the community he would step out, face them, and hear their stories. The weight of that promise felt heavier than any burden he had carried before. He dressed quickly, slipping into a comfortable jacket and sturdy shoes, ready for a long day ahead. Daniel, who had already finished breakfast, looked at him with a mix of concern and pride. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, eyes searching his father's. Marcus hesitated but then nodded firmly. "Yes, I need to. I have to show them that I mean what I said. It's not just words anymore." "Just be yourself," Daniel added, a small smile breaking through the nervousness. "They need to see you as you are, not just the CEO." With that, Marcus stepped out into the brisk morning. The cool air filled his lungs, and for the first time in a long while, he felt alive. Each step toward the park felt like a step toward reclaiming not just his role in the community, but also his own sense of purpose. As he arrived, he noticed the gathering crowd, a mosaic of faces filled with varying emotions. Some looked hopeful, while others appeared skeptical, arms crossed defensively. Jake was already there, tapping his foot against the pavement, waiting. "Glad you made it," Jake said, his tone still edged with caution. "Let us see if you really are here to listen." They started the walk, and as they moved, people began to open up. At first, it was just brief comments and scattered issues. Marcus listened attentively, nodding, taking mental notes. But soon the conversations flowed, and stories poured out about families struggling to make ends meet, about dreams stifled by bureaucracy, about generations who felt forgotten. He could feel their pain, their frustration crashing over him like waves. It was overwhelming but also illuminating. He hadn't realized just how disconnected he had become from the realities of their lives. Each story he heard was not just another statistic, it was a life, a struggle, a narrative begging to be told. Why do you think it's so hard for people like us to be heard? One man asked, his voice thick with emotion. Because it's easier to ignore than to engage, Marcus replied honestly, forcing himself to look the man in the eyes. But I'm here to change that. I want to change that. A ripple of surprise went through the group. Hope flickered in their expressions, but Marcus saw something else too. Doubt. They were cautious, as if waiting for the moment when his words would crumble into empty promises. As the walk continued, they reached an open space filled with benches where people gathered. Marcus suggested they sit, and the mood shifted slightly. He could see faces softening, possibilities blooming. Yet in that moment, the weight of his own fears crept back in. What if this was just another false start? With a deep breath, he shared something personal, a story from his past that had shaped who he was. The room grew silent as they listened intently. It felt like he had opened a window, letting fresh air into a stuffy room. The crowd leaned in, connecting on a level deeper than he anticipated. At the end of his story, he asked, "What's one thing you hope for in this community?" Responses began to surface, each voice colorfully expressing dreams of opportunity, unity, and change. A feeling of togetherness wrapped around them, binding their hopes to his own. As the day wore on, Marcus began to see glimmers of trust forming like jewels within that crowd. But just as the conversation began to take a hopeful turn, an unexpected voice rang out from the back. A formidable figure, a local leader who had been known for opposing everything Marcus stood for. "Why should we believe you? Talk is cheap." "We've heard it all before," she said, her tone sharp, cutting through the newfound energy like a cold blade. A hush fell over the group, eyes darting between Marcus and the newcomer. This was the moment of truth, the pivotal moment that could either fracture everything he built or solidify the fragile trust that was beginning to bloom. Could he find the words that would turn this moment into something lasting, or was this truly the end before it even began? Marcus felt the weight of her words push down on him. The murmurs of the crowd faded into a silence so thick it pressed against his chest. He took a split second to gather his thoughts, heart racing as he faced the fierce gaze of the woman who challenged his intentions. Her presence was striking, a woman of authority, well respected in the community, her voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter of hope he had started to weave. "Your skepticism is valid," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "I get it. I've been the one speaking from afar, while you've lived this reality day in and day out. But I'm here now, ready to prove that I'm not like those who've let you down before." Brows lifted slightly in mild surprise. Even some of the skeptical faces softened, if only a fraction. Slowly, he began to pace the small space in front of them, not entirely sure if this would bolster their trust or deepen their doubt. "I know my past decisions have created walls instead of openness," he went on, meeting the intense gaze of the woman with newfound courage. "I want to break those down. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to stand alongside you, listen to you, and find real solutions together." "Real solutions?" She folded her arms, tilting her head. "Sounds nice, but what makes you think you can? You've never faced the challenges we do daily." Her voice resonated through the crowd, caution joined with curiosity. Marcus could feel the tension ease slightly, as if they were opening a door rather than slamming it shut. "You're right," he replied, tone steady. "I haven't lived your struggles. But that's exactly why I need you. I can't do this alone. I'm asking for your help and expertise to understand what's really needed. To find solutions that actually work." He sensed a shift, a collective inhalation. People seemed to lean in, absorbing his words. In her expression, there was uncertainty that hinted at something fragile, a glimmer of hope battling with a long history of betrayal. "Let us start with a small step," he proposed suddenly, inspiring himself as much as the crowd. "A monthly meeting, right here. A space for everyone to voice their stories without fear. Let us create an agenda shaped by your needs, not mine. There was a pause. Eyes exchanged glances, weighing his offer. He could feel anticipation humming through the air. Would they take a chance on him, or was it too late? Finally, the strong leader nodded, albeit slowly, and spoke again. We'll consider it. But you better be sincere. We've had enough empty promises. I understand that trust takes time, Marcus said, voice warm yet firm. But I want to run away when things get tough. I want to earn my place here. Let us rebuild, even if it's one brick at a time. As he locked eyes with her again, a flicker passed between them. People started murmuring amongst themselves, hesitant excitement buzzing in the atmosphere. They could feel the shift. It was more than just words, it was a possibility. This fragile bond was slowly knitting itself together, and Marcus felt the thrill of connection, however tentative. Before long, hands began to rise. Questions cascaded into ideas, concerns tumbling forth in a burst of energy previously suppressed. The conversation flowed, and Marcus found himself breathing easier, churning hope simmering in his chest, but just as the discussions gained momentum, a loud siren echoed nearby. The atmosphere shifted again, a jarring reminder that challenges still loomed large outside this moment. What is going on? Marcus asked, frowning. Not sure, Jake replied, glancing toward the street. Can't be good. Marcus's heart sank. The peace they had built felt increasingly fragile as urgent voices popped up around him. There was no denying it, adversity was knocking at the door. The community's needed dialogue was far from over. As Marcus stared into the crowd, the weight of the day pressed back in. He realized their work wasn't just about a meeting, it was about facing the storms, together. Would they embrace the flame of progress or allow old fears to extinguish their hope? Let us go check it out, Marcus decided, feeling the call of responsibility settle on his shoulders once more. As the crowd shifted, curiosity and concern fused, a critical question hanging in the air: what would they find waiting on the other side of that siren-esque call? The sun glinted off the polished tiles of the community center as Marcus reached the entrance, the tension vibrantly alive. Outside, the clean hum of the sirens contrasted with the disarray of voices inside, an echo of the chaos he'd faced just a day before. Marcus pushed through the doors. Inside, the buzz of apprehension bounced off the walls. People turned to him, eyes wide, full of questions and uncertainty. He could feel their anticipation, just like the air before a storm. "Dad?" Daniel called, tugging on his sleeve. "What's happening?" Marcus knelt down to his son's level, searching his eyes. "I don't know yet, but we're in this together. Whatever it is, we'll face it as a family, and as a community." As he spoke, a collective murmur drifted through the room, eyes shifting toward the window. Outside, figures in the shadows: protesters, reporters, community members, they all blended into one mass of emotions. "Look, it's them." Jake pointed toward the street. Voices escalated, distinct, overlapping, each one filled with urgency. As kids tugged at their parents' hands, Marcus felt the familiar sensation of anxiety rise in his chest. No more waiting. "Let us go," he urged, his heart racing as he led the way outside. The crowd followed, an unyielding wave of humanity pushing forward, and there it was, the source of the noise. A group of protesters, armed with signs, marched in a line, their chants melding into a single heartbeat of frustration. "We want answers." A loud speaker boomed. "Enough is enough." The urgency washed over Marcus, fear clashing with determination. He caught Daniel's worried gaze and steeled himself to act. They were here to transform, to heal, but how could they do that amidst this storm? "Everybody!" Marcus shouted, raising his voice over the clamor. "I'm here. I'm listening." The chanting fell momentarily in surprise, eyes zeroing in on him as if he were a lighthouse guiding them through the dense fog. "Listen, this isn't just an announcement. He continued, his voice steady. It's a promise. We're not shying away from the dialogue. We're here to face it, head on. I know I've got a long way to go to earn your trust. But I want to start now. The protesters looked at each other, uncertainty flickering among them. Marcus could almost hear the gears turning. He needed to bridge this divide. Step forward, he called to the protest leaders, gesturing toward the group. Let us talk right now about what you need from me. Jake stepped up alongside him, mirroring his resolve. Let us not waste this chance. You've got questions, and we're here to get answers. The atmosphere shifted, like a rod of lightning connecting the group together. Faces filled with skepticism slowly turned to curiosity, fueled by the reality that this was their moment and opportunity for dialogue, for engagement. Beneath the sirens, the crowd began to respond. We need security in our homes, shouted one protester. This isn't just about development. What about affordable housing? Yes. Another echoed, what will happen to the community spaces we love? As each voice rose, so too did the energy. People stepped forward, reclaiming their fears and hopes. Each story shared pushed the barriers between them and Marcus, a tangible shape slowly emerging from chaos. He took a deep breath. Daniel held his hand tightly, grounding him. You're right, Marcus responded to the shouts. And I need to hear more. We'll make this a priority in our discussions at the community meetings. You'll have a seat at the table. Cheers erupted from the crowd, mingling with uncertainty, a mixed bag of raw emotions. They hungered for action, for authenticity, and Marcus found himself caught up in that same hunger. We're committed to building better futures, he said, raising his voice to harness that energy. But it cannot be done without all of you. I want to hear from each of you. The challenges of today become the victories of tomorrow if we share this responsibility. The sound of murmurs filled the air again, this time threaded with something unmistakable, hope. He could feel Daniel's fingers gripping him tighter, the pulse of energy in his son's grip, a reminder that together they could take on anything. They were standing on the precipice of change, a new start unspooling before them. People of this community, we must stand together. Will you join me? Yes. A voice punctured the air, a woman with fire in her eyes. The moment solidified, a match struck against the current of fear and despair. With each answer and each raised hand, the crowd began to coalesce into something more than just a protest. They became a community once more. This was the moment. Real transformation was palpable in every word exchanged, every answer sought. The tides shifted, and as Marcus stood amidst the growing chorus of voices, he began to see a pathway appeared through the tempest, carrying them all forward. As they began to retreat back to the community center, every step felt like a bridge made stronger. They weathered the storm together, their potential was no longer just a dream. The sun shone just enough to break through, casting a light onto their faces as they stepped across the threshold. Inside, they were met with tentative smiles and whispers of camaraderie. A spark ignited there, lives intertwined, each story now forming strands of connection. We truly can rebuild, Marcus thought, glancing at Daniel, whose face reflected a world of possibilities. A promise, a shared future, not just as a CEO but as a brother, a father, and a community member. As they settled down to share more ideas, a renewed sense of purpose washed over Marcus. Together, they would reshape their reality, brick by brick, voice by voice. And that was only the beginning. As you reflect on this journey of resilience and change, remember the power to transform lies within the choices we make, the connections we foster, and the community we build. Now, if you love this story and want to catch every transformative chapter ahead, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and help more stories like this get the attention they deserve. Comment below with your feelings about today's journey and share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this kind of inspiration. Don't wait not even one more second to share. The future of our community benefits from your voice.